Hi everybody, this is Annalisa with Journey to the Goddess, where I regenerate ancient feminine wisdom for the modern woman. Today I am with Kris Oster. Hello, Kris.
Hello, darling.
How are you?
We're in the Acacia Mansion, so we're feeling very luxurious and sumptuous as goddesses should.
Exactly. And we thought what better than to sit on our chaise lounge here. Let me give a little intro on Kris. Kris is an author, archetypal brand strategist, marketing copywriter, and tarot reader who teaches creative, mystical-minded entrepreneurs how to bring in more clients, customers, and prosperity by being fully themselves. She is here to revolutionize the feminine face of business unapologetically. She has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs create a business and livelihood that feels pleasurable, alluring, and that reflects their authentic vision. So, Kris, I am so excited to be here with you today and talk about pleasure, okay? And there are many ways to experience pleasure, as I've learned from watching you on social media and spending some time on your website. So I really love the way that the divine feminine archetype of pleasure is central to your business. And the way that you bring in the mythic as well as the embodied part is so refreshing and enticing, especially for me because I'm in the middle of dissertation right now and I'm so logo-centric.
As you need to be. It's part of the process.
Yeah, thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about what the divine feminine is for you and how she shows up in your work?
Well, I grew up in an Italian family. My mom was half Japanese and Swedish, and my dad Italian. So
wow.
I call myself, a Swedish meatball with a side of wasabi. So, because I love food and I love eating. So the goddess to me is central to, number one, this idea of pleasure and sacred pleasure. So not pleasures that are necessarily like guilty pleasures or addictions, but the goddess, what she is and what she teaches us is to be in our bodies. When I talk about even the archetype of pleasure, like there's this idea of the archetypes as being this very logocentric sort of thing that's very mental and intellectual, and then there's the part of the goddess that is also very embodied.
Yeah.
And there's a part of the goddess that is spiritual. It's, she's a spirituality. She is our immanence, being present and being in the body, and she's also, as we see, and there's so many different goddesses and what they represent in different realms that they are sovereign over. There's also wisdom, and wisdom, Sophia, Athena, is all about the head, strategy, intellect, and rationality. But to me, the goddess is the heart of pleasure and rebirthing ourselves in our full, authentic being.
So I love this idea of seeing this sacred pleasure as a feminine principle and the different ways we can truly live and embody that as a way to coming back to self. Especially because of what I'm working on right now with Maria Gimbutas's work and looking at her theories on the great goddess and this cycle of regeneration that she saw in the great goddess and in the Neolithic cultures who worshipped the great goddess, and that kind of complementary vision that they saw in women. And it was, so embodied, and we're so embodied in these rhythmic regenerative cycles that I think, at least for me, is helping me view my body differently, feel my body differently, see the power imbued in my body differently.
I think that in itself is regenerative because we live in a society, men and women, where we're overworked. We run from place to place. We're always planning something, and, we're not, this is such a cliche, but we're not human doings, we're human beings. So why are we not being? What is that? Why are we running from that? But there's so much regeneration in pleasure, in beingness. And I think that's like the natural state of humans. And why do we keep running from that? What's that about?
So the second question is really about pleasure and work. So how does this pleasure principle work itself into business? Both, this is kind of two-part, both for you as an entrepreneur, but also how you teach that to people.
Work and pleasure, a lot of people think they make strange bedfellows. They don't. They go together really well. And part of this, I like to break it down in, we look at like the Psyche and Eros story.
Mm-hmm.
And they come together. So Eros is like the erotic glue that brings Psyche, which is the soul and the body, together. And then they fall in love, they come together, and they create a daughter, which, depending if it's Greek or Roman, it's volupta, which means pleasure.
Oh, wow.
So the union of the soul and the body creates pleasure, especially for entrepreneurs. I mean, and the thing is, even if you're like a corporate, leading a corporate army somewhere, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. You are bringing work to audience, to people, maybe it's your own town, maybe it's the world, it doesn't matter. But if you don't have soul in that, it reeks. There's a bad smell, and people are like, no, we're not wanting that. People want to be felt. They want to be experienced. They want to be acknowledged. So more and more companies are really focusing on mindfulness. Gee, what is mindfulness? That's presence. What is presence? Pleasure. I think so much comes back to that, and it ties in so well to your idea of the regenerative mother goddess, because this whole idea is bringing your authentic calling and life force through you and out to the world. That's what livelihood is. That's what dharma, that's what work is.
Right.
And if you have 20,000 employees at a Walmart and you make them all feel like they're worthless and, soulless, what is that going to do?
Right, exactly.
Everything breaks down, and we're seeing that in so many corporations, which is why they're all going to mindfulness programs and wellness programs. And guess what they're doing? They're doing meditation and yoga, all things to slow down.
Right.
To go back into beingness.
Yes. It seems like pleasure is, to me at least, assigned to like a very specific area of life. And I know this is part of the model that you're talking about, is bringing it into an area where it's traditionally not accepted.
I would say pleasure is an approach to something. So we can do our work in a way that feels rushed, that feels exhausting. I think part of pleasure is supposed to be like this reward that you get at the end of the day.
Right.
But it's something nobody ever does. It is definitely a maligned sort of topic, in the sense that people think of it as frivolous. People think of it as, who has time for pleasure if you really want to conquer the world? And
that already is a little pathological, the conquering the world mentality.
Oh,
yeah.
And I'm not going to say that I don't ever fall into that. I mean, I'm a very ambitious person.
Sure.
I want to do big things and great things in life, and I've learned by exhausting myself and overworking and like falling in a heap, crying in tears at midnight because I'm still working and something's not going right. And then, you wake up the next morning and all of a sudden, boom, everything happens perfectly. To me, pleasure is always, it's an eternal timing. It's an eternal internal timing where I need to step away and eat that ice cream cone, or I need to step away and have amazing sex. I need to step away and
have a dance party in the living room.
Have a dance party, or just close my eyes and breathe for 5 minutes. Like I would tell people, take even little pleasure breaks. And it makes a huge difference in your productivity. speaking of regenerative, it's like, because we do, it's like our adrenals, there's like in the body, yes, we can say that all things are infinite, the soul is infinite, but the body is not infinite. The body definitely has a limit.
Right.
And needs to have its energy recalibrated, regenerated, all of that. And it's simple. We don't have to overcomplicate things, for sure.
I love that. I mean, and in part, I'm really asking for myself because I have a lot of these tendencies to push the pleasure part aside and only focus on the overachieving and just workaholism and perfectionism. I mean, it's gotten to the point literally where I had to write a list recently of the things that bring me joy because I can't remember. I'm so
good for
work-driven.
you.
Yeah.
Good for you. You write it down, you put it on the bathroom mirror. We all have to do that.
Yes.
Even the queen of telling people you should have pleasure in your life. And yeah, I mean, it's good for me because I have to come back and am I walking my talk? Am I doing what I'm telling other people to do? And a lot of times I'm not. And that's just natural. We're socialized and we're taught from the time we're kids that, hard work, struggle is what validates you as a human being. No, I say
It's quite a paradigm.
No.
Before we get into Kris modeling the archetypal presentation on me for you, I want to ask you one more question, and that is with regard to the goddess and pleasure. I have a very narrow version of the goddess and pleasure. Like what comes to mind would be Aphrodite or Venus. Oshun, that's also very pleasurable in her kind of beingness. But what I heard you say earlier, I think, is that that there are different goddesses that can constellate pleasure in different ways, and that maybe you can invoke them to help you live out pleasure in different ways that aren't limited to one figure. Is that accurate or?
Absolutely true. When we do the presentation, you'll see where it starts to come out.
Great.
But the mother, like Yemaya, and I am a mother to a little girl who's not so little anymore, but I just remember like nursing her and just how much pleasure that was. Obviously there's, the different love and, euphoric hormones that come with breastfeeding. Yeah. It's just a pleasure of holding her, a pleasure of knowing that I'm protecting this little being, that there's pleasure in that. There's pleasure in meditating. I mean, sometimes if I don't have time to do anything, if I meditate for 10 minutes, I just like, oh. I said meditation and everything just kind of... it slows down. Yeah. What we say, how we frame everything, it changes energy. Wow. So when I use the archetypes with people, whether we're bringing in a goddess, like let's say Demeter, the pleasure of feeling nourished. Because we know if we overeat, we don't feel good. That's not pleasure. That's overindulgence, and it feels pleasurable in the moment, but afterwards. So a Demeter aspect of us would be like, care for yourself by eating nutritious foods. And at first it sounds like, well, that sounds kind of boring. But then if you eat like a really nutritious meal and you chew slowly and you like get into it, it's like so sensual. We're creative beings, and I think pleasure, if we just keep thinking about it, we could just create more and more and more, no matter what we're doing. Yeah.
If you liked today's video, I encourage you to like it, to make a comment, and to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you're curious about more ways that you can get involved with Journey to the Goddess or support Journey to the Goddess, then I invite you to head on over to my Patreon page, or Matreon, however you want to think about it.
Like Matreon. I know. That's so cute.
I wish I could change the name to Matreon.
Oh my God. There's a business idea. There's a business idea. Yes. Somebody create Matreon, please.
Please.
We'll be the first to join.
Yes, we'll be your first customers. So head on over to the Patreon page and you can find out all about membership, how you can be eligible for cool goddess products, and behind the scenes footage. There's plenty of deleted scenes from those interviews that you can view there. And I really appreciate your support, however that comes out. So thank you so so much, and I will see you next time. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.